All right, so let's get jamming. So this is a static site generator, and let's get started. So my name is Dennis Stepp. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. I just started working at Lirio on Monday. So what we do is some apply machine learning to like healthcare data and utility data, and try to drive customer behaviors based on that. That's the overview I've gotten so far. And then I also do game development with a studio called Unibear Studio, which is me and two other guys from Indianapolis, and we've been working on a project for a long time, and we're going to be working on it for a much longer time, and hopefully we'll actually have something to take to market. And then there's my blog. All different kinds of just random stuff out there. There's a PowerShell talk after this. I wrote some PowerShell function to do something and I don't remember, and I put it on my blog, so you can go check that out. I honestly don't remember what it was. Anyways, so static site generators. So what a static site generator does is we'll take your markdown content and generate all this HTML content for you. And it kind of beckons back to the old days when you wrote HTML and you deployed that to a web server instead of building out all this ASP.NET MVC framework and all this Angular stuff and all this React stuff, and all that stuff is fine and great. But if you're just making like a site to land on and then do nothing else, just like a brochure informational site, you probably don't want to go through the pain and suffering of all that Angular or React or whatever framework. So this is a good way to get around that. So this is also a really fast thing to do, so there's no database thrashing, there's no I/O going back and forth. It's literally serve the HTML up to the web server and to the client, and you're done. No templating, no processing, so that makes it super fast. And it's secure in the sense that it's just static files, right? So how much can you really do with that? You can't really get into a web API because you don't have one. So also this makes it really simpler on your infrastructure. You don't have all these .NET dependencies or Java dependencies. It's just HTML. So it also scales up to traffic surges pretty well. So some disadvantages to why you probably wouldn't want to use a static site generator, and that would be you don't have real-time content. So if you're doing like a ticker for ESPN, this is not the route to go. Yeah, you can add JavaScript and do some things with that, but if someone makes a post and posts like content through a JavaScript function, that doesn't mean that everybody else out there on the web is going to be able to see that. There's no real way to do user input, so if you want to do that, this probably isn't the way you want to go. There's no admin UI as well. So some applications of when you want to use a static site generator is something like a blog, or for your project documentation back at work, or your project that you're doing just by yourself to keep track of things. Brochure websites, like I said before, and really you can do whatever you want. I built out an eCommerce front end that would have all the JavaScript stuff in the back. Really, I'm just using the eCommerce front end as kind of just steal somebody else's HTML and CSS, or the CSS, you know, because I'm not going to program CSS because I don't want to, and I'm sure a lot of you probably don't. So I just steal somebody else's theme, which is super easy to do. So there's lots of different static site generators out there. Probably one of the most popular ones is Jekyll, which is a big, GitHub's backing it and all that. I think GitHub even made it. And they have really good plugins for getting your WordPress site off of WordPress and into Jekyll. Hugo, we'll look at Hugo. Hugo's kind of the one I've landed on. So it's built on the Go language that Google's made, and because of this it has incredibly fast speeds because it's pretty low level. Now, I will say for these static site generators, if you're using Hugo, you don't need to know Go. I don't even think I've ever seen a line of Go code in my life, and I've used this like all the time. And if I have seen a line of Go, I don't know that I did. Hexa is another one, created with the Node.js. Lots of extensibility there. Lots of people have written libraries for it. I haven't personally used it. Gitbook is another one. I've used that. It was pretty quick and easy. I only used it once for one little tiny project at work, and then, I mean, this stuff is incredibly fast to just write, and we'll see that later. But there's tons of these out there: Octopress, Gatsby, Pelican, Brunch, Metalsmith, Middleman, MKDocs, and YM, which is the .NET one. And YM's kind of interesting. We'll get into some Razor-looking kind of code. Some interesting facts about static sites. I found these two examples, and one of them, a Jekyll site for Obama's campaign in 2012 raised $250 million through a static site. Another one, the healthcare.gov website, went from a CMS-free solution over the Jekyll. So that's kind of interesting that things like that could even be static sites. So we'll look at Hugo first. And Hugo is really great for if you want to stand up a blog really quick, or project documentation, or whatever else. It's super easy to do. Tons of modules out there. You can roll your own. And that's from a different presentation when I talked about YM, but there's also lots of things you can do with YM. So to install Hugo, there you go. That's it. Just a simple, if you ever used Chocolate as a package manager for Windows, that's pretty awesome that they have that. So just Chocolate install Hugo and you're off to the races, ready to go. And then to build a site, that's it. It's a one-liner, Hugo new site, and give it a name. You can add themes to Hugo. So there's all these different kinds of themes that you can choose from, which is super easy. You just go grab their, didn't mean to do that. I meant to actually make a new tab instead of totally abort the presentation.
We're with you. You're good.
There we go. So Hugo has quite a few themes out there, and you can build your own if you want. I'm not one of those people that would, but if you are, if you're more artistically inclined, you can definitely go out and do that. And this is running off my hotspot right now, so it might take a while for it to load. So anyways, no, I couldn't get the Wi-Fi to like even turn on, so yeah. Thanks, Clarion, or wherever we are, whatever that's called. So yeah, you just download the theme and bam, add it to your config file, and you're off and running. You got a nice looking theme. And if you want to add content, just make a new post and give it a name, and you write all that content in Markdown. And you get something that will look like this, just out of the box. So 3 commands, I think, from install to you made a post. That's pretty significant. You don't have all this wiring up of all this stuff. It's just run these few things and you're done. So blogs are fine and all that, but well, let's take a look at the theme since it finally loaded. So you can see there's tons of different choices here. So just pick one, pick whatever you like, get it, and you're done. Super easy. And while I'm thinking about it, make sure that's up and going for that. All right, so you can also use this for project documentation. Like I said, MK Docs is a really good one, especially for project documentation. It seems to lend itself more toward that kind of a site. Same with Gitbook. Gitbook is a really good out of the box. This is your standard project documentation of what it's going to look like. So you probably have seen tons of sites that look like this. So with MK Docs, you have a dependency on Python and pip, and then you install MK Docs, which is super simple. And just to create a new project, you just say MK Docs, new project, CD into that project, and say MK Docs serve. And what that does is actually spin up a local server for you, and you can see live reloads and everything, so you can see what changes you're making in the Markdown and how that impacts the HTML that you can deploy. So out of the box, this is what you get when you run that one command to build a new site. So from that point on, you're just focused on getting the content there. And it's just a matter of writing all that up in Markdown. Or if you're like me and worked for a company that had all their documentation in Microsoft Word documents, you copy paste that over and get all the strange artifacts like the dash dash that became the long dash, whatever that's called. Yeah, and cleaning that up is fun. And this is a little small, but this is a project that I built, so you can see that I have like multiple indentations and tabs. I actually have a folder structure here, and then the content over there. And that's without like trying to be fancy and theme it or anything. That's just right out of the box. So now what we're going to do is basically build a front end for an e-commerce site. And this is not like super fancy or anything, but and again, I just stole the template from somebody else that published it. I didn't actually steal it, right? Borrowed it. But we can just build a blog, and with YAM, since it's written in .NET, you have all of the C# syntax, and you can do razor pages and stuff like that if you've ever done any of that. So YAM has this concept of pipelines, and what that really is we can look at Markdown files in a folder structure, read all those files, assimilate them, and we can load YAML configurations and YAML format, add Markdown to it, get all the metadata from the documents, merge all that together, and come up with merge all that together and actually get those files loaded up as the products, or apply the product's CSHTML file to all that Markdown content and load up Razor with that. And then this is just the view start for that application, which takes the layout and just says, my layout is that, whatever is defined in that file, which is this, which is just saying, here's my style sheet, and render the body of this site. And then it goes through and it grabs all the docs from the product file, or for each document in products, it loads that product file, and then applies whatever variables I have mentioned here within these HTML elements, like the title of the item, what the price is, what the description is. So it lends itself to being able to programmatically just suck in a whole bunch of files, spit it in a template, and generate all that HTML out the other end. And this is what the product's HTML file looks like. So we can see that we have just a simple, here's the product description and then a button. Now this button doesn't actually do anything because I didn't bother to actually make this thing functional, but it is a good, this was mainly built to prove out to a customer that you could use this instead of spending thousands of dollars on an Oracle product to do the same thing, which is what they were planning on doing. And then this is the markdown of that file. So my thinking here was, instead of having this markdown file actually typed in like this, you could pull JSON down, generate these markdown files, load them up through the HTML, and do it that way. Never got that far, but at this point, you're just modifying content. And then the same thing with another product. Same structure and everything, just different content. And then out the other end, you get something that could look like this. So you can see the different instruments, the prices, all that, and really that wasn't much work. This one was much more involved than just standing up a blog. But with a little bit more tinkering, you can start to build out more rich applications. And so how do I actually get this to somewhere? Well, if you already have a web server sitting there, you can just literally drag and drop the files to your web server and have it served up. Or the route that I go is I deploy to a service called Netlify, which is a global CDN, has continuous deployments. HTTPS is out of the box, thanks to...
Let's encrypt.
Yes. And all that's pretty much automatic. You can also do the yield drag and drop method with that. So you just take your HTML output, drop it in Netlify, it takes the site and it's ready to go once you get it all configured. You can also upload a zip file. So this is a example cake script of taking the your HTML content and actually throwing it against Netlify's APIs and uploading that zip file that way, and then I'll extract it and build the site and run all those build commands and everything for you. And well, yeah, that's just uploading a zip file. Or you can use Netlify's CLI to do the same kind of thing. So different ways to do all these things. What I prefer is actually VCS integration. So what I can do is just make a commit on my repository, send that out to GitHub, it deploys to the master branch, and there's a hook on the master branch that Netlify is looking at GitHub and saying, is there a change? If there's a change, then it will pull that repo down and run my build steps, deploy the code, or deploy the site, and I didn't have to do anything but commit the code in the first place. So that's super, super convenient because I'd rather not fumble around with moving files around. I just want to move the code and I know it's good. So now, let's go ahead and build a blog with Hugo.
Live demo?
Yeah, live demo.
Right on.
So, never done a live demo before, so let's watch it crash and burn, right? So, if I want to build a new Hugo site, I can say Hugo, new site, and I'm just going to call it P22 for Freaknik 22.
Hey, bud, you're 2.5 feet from your laptop. Is there any way you can make it bigger for us?
Yeah. Font, yes. God, that's gonna look.
There you go.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
one.
that's good. I can look at that.
That's better.
Ah, sweet.
All right, so hopefully I get that syntax right. Yes, I did. Hooray, I have a new site. So let's check out what that looks like. Let's go into the P22 directory and open this up in code. So this is pretty much the structure that you have. You have all your content's going to live in here. This will be your markdown files. You can throw data in here for like JSON or whatever that you want to pull. Layouts in here, static files are going to be in there, and your themes are there. And then you have this config file. And this is a pretty basic config file, but let's go ahead and add a new post, which is, I forgot what the command was. All right.
What are you doing again?
Just creating a new post.
Okay.
So Hugo, new post, first post. So hooray, I have a new post, first post. And this is what it will generate for you. You can have drafts to true or false. So if you want to have content that you're working on and go ahead and do all the builds and everything, but not actually display this on your site, you can set this draft to true and make sure that in your config that drafts will not be published. I'm going to go ahead and turn this to false because I don't really care. And let's just add some simple markdown. Welcome to the conference. Is some text. Hooray. So let's go ahead and serve this up locally. And now I have a local host running on 1313, and I should be able to see that and see what that post looks like. Maybe.
Did you hit save on Visual Studio?
That's, yeah, there you go.
I hate code.
Right?
You have to redo the edit?
So it actually detected that change
Yeah.
right here
Oh, yes, yeah.
and automatically wrote it,
Nice.
hopefully. We'll see if it's lying to us. Maybe it is.
Live demos.
Right?
Oh, it quit. It's quit serving.
Yeah. I just killed it.
It says 4 and 1 instead of 3 and 1.
What was that?
It looks like it went to 4 and 1 instead of 3 and 1 on the pages versus it was 3 and 1, now it's 4 and 1.
Oh.
So it served it. Do you have to put a slash something in there?
I was gonna say, maybe try a different browser you have to block her on.
Yeah, it could be.
Localhost over.
Was it?
You never know.
Localhost. Yeah, it's spelled localhost.
That's weird.
Try to brush.
Wow.
Tell me more about localhost 13.
Yeah.
There you go, first
You have to put the whole
article.
URL, HTTP,
Can't open your localhost 13. There's a Stack Overflow article for it.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Ah! There it goes. We feel the pain.
And there you go. There's a static site running in production. Great. Yeah.
It's all right.
I don't know what's going on there. HTTP, localhost 1313, blah, blah, blah.
There's no firewalling thing about making a local host port, right?
No. This is odd. Maybe something just got. Let's try this.
Check it out.
Oh my God.
I've only used Hugo on Linux, but I really like it.
Yeah, it's,
What is Hugo written in?
Go?
Oh, God, really?
yeah.
Really?
Oh, that
All right,
pain in my
so
existence.
I don't know what I've worked with
totally
that.
different from Ruby. We're still at the phase in the Go language that the people using it tend to be far smarter than your average programmers and don't make a huge
Actually.
mess.
Who's we?
I think I know what might be
Said
going
we
on.
are in this. Who's we?
Yeah, the world is in this phase
Oh,
where
the world. Oh, it's
Go is, if you find packages in Go, they're usually a lot better quality than packages in other languages at this moment. That could change, just like it changed in Java.
That is true, however, it raises the bar of entry.
Not by much. You can learn Go in a weekend.
Not by much, but it does.
You can compare it to any other language.
So I think it cached the failure.
99% of the world's
Maybe not.
code is
Okay.
written on
I don't know.
somebody's first day.
So,
In the first language they ever learn,
Exactly.
because they're too lazy to go learn another one like Go.
That's true, but you know what? You
So
get
with-
paid dollars.
With Hugo, is it, what if I wanted to put up a media wiki site? Is that fairly easy to do with Hugo, or is that a different direction?
like what kind of
It's like a
site?
media wiki or a wiki site that does, is there like a module for Hugo, or is that getting away from static?
I think a wiki site would be perfect-ish.
Yeah, it'd be perfectly
Perfect-ish.
fine.
Okay.
Because the static part's static, and then usually there's a review process for content.
So instead, I'll show you this site that
Alright.
is working, right? So all this is content right here, so let me get out of this huge directory of stuff. All right, so looking at this config file is much more involved than that simple one, right? And one of the reasons for this is because I actually have, everybody screenshot my analytics code right there, because this is actually running in production. But anyways, there's all this config, and most of it I don't even know or understand, because guess what? It came from somewhere else. But there's some of it, like, yeah, the first name of the site and all that kind of stuff, and what the base URL is for the site. In my content, I have just some information about different bluegrass festivals. Anybody a bluegrass fan in here?
Who isn't?
All right, cool. So all these different festivals and jams is under construction because I haven't done anything with it because I don't know where anybody is playing music. But I have all these different songs. And I know one of the songs that I have in here actually has a mistake because it has the wrong chords, because I was playing it the other day and went, that's not right. So I actually wanted to go ahead and fix this.
We're doing it live?
Doing it live,
Ooh.
hopefully. So I know the problem is this chord right here. I came prepared for that. And I know this chord, and I got all these blank space characters. I really don't like this, but I couldn't figure out how else to make all the chords line up on top of the lyrics. So this is what I did.
The line is marked up.
But yeah, there should be some other way to do that. But go ahead and do that. I'm on the master branch. I should be able to, well, let's go check out that song. So this is my site, and then I'll go over the songs, all the songs. Yeah, I'm on there. And then that was the song that we just edited, and it should GC8. Cool, that's what I just changed. So now that I did that, that's on my local host. I'm going to go ahead and kill that. I'm happy with that change. Let's do a git commit.
To git add that.
I have to do what?
You have to git add that.
Oh, yeah.
That thing.
What's going on?
You're in
All
instant
right,
mode.
how do I get out
Escape.
of this?
Just go to the top line. Oh, it's VI. It's VI. So we're going to push GG. Actually, sorry, escape GG. Escape first, then GG, and then I, and then type something that describes what you just changed. Fixed Suzanne. And then escape, WQ.
Thank you. It has been a long time since I've done anything on the command line with Git. So,
That's already been pushed.
sweet. So it's already,
So your local Git is updated, but your remote Git is
Oh,
not
yeah.
updated. So you have to Git push it. There you go. And it should ask for some credentials, maybe, I don't know. How you got it. Oh, good fail.
yay.
Is that in clear text?
Yeah, it is. We'll find it. Well, all right.
No. Good.
There she goes. That's good.
All right, cool. Now that's pushed and everything. So that was on the master branch. So
Do you have a CI that actually runs it?
So whenever I do a push on my master branch, it'll automatically has a hook in Netlify. So it's already building the site, and actually it just finished. So now that site is actually live, so I should be able to go over and let's get rid of that. Yeah, we'll just do it that way. Head over the songs, go to all the songs.
And it's not the site is slow, it's your...
It's my hotspot that's super slow, because this is super fast.
Right.
I have a website that I built for a festival, and, you know, since it's a festival, it gets like maybe a hit a day, probably not even that. And over the weekend, it got 1,500 hits per day, because there's that many people there banging up against the site, and no one ever complained. I don't know if they didn't complain because they didn't know who to complain to, or if there just wasn't any complaint. I did have a few complaints of, I don't know where to find this kind of stuff, but you know, that's to be expected. And now, site's live, good to go. So, except for totally stumbling over the demo and everything, yeah. So you can build crap like this pretty easy. What takes the longest time is actually writing the content. But you know, if you have a marketing department to do that for you.
Well, no, that's the important part.
Right, yeah. And there's also a tool that kind of acts like a is a CMS that will sit on top of your Hugo site called Forestry.io. And basically it just looks like, you know, super easy to use for someone who doesn't want to write actual markdown. They can just go in there and it has a text editor and all that, just like any forum on the internet, I guess. And that's super easy to use, but I didn't want to show it because you do have to pay for it. And it's like $9 a month per user. So I think it's free up to 5 users. And it actually will, when the user saves content on that, it actually creates a commit on their behalf inside your Git repository. So if you already have this Git hook set up and everything, you don't have to worry about, you know, someone not being able to get their content out there. And I want to show off to the deployment steps here. You can set up, you know, different build environment variables and everything. So right now I'm running Hugo on version 0.4, or 40.2. And there should be, so the build command is Hugo. I'm going to publish everything in the public directory, and my production branch is going to be my master branch. And that's literally it. So when you look at the builds, nope. You can see exactly what you would see in the console if you built this locally, and what all your dependencies are and all that. I don't know why there's Ruby and PHP there. I just now noticed that, but that's neat. Loosely using neat in a loose term there.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have no idea why that's there. But yeah, it does all that stuff for you, and super simple to get into and use, despite my, trial and error of that site not working. But anyways, that's all I had. Is there any questions or?
Well,
Yeah.
I do have a discussion with you.
Yeah.
You and I have different philosophies. I believe that a well-cached, CDN distributed website that's dynamic is easier to operate and maintain than a static content site. I've gone both ways,
Mhm.
right? And could you elaborate the differences for the rest of us? Why that decision might be made?
So for me, for the kinds of things I was working on, especially for that festival site, this is something that I do once and it's done. And maybe change the dates once a year.
Okay.
So it's really not, I'm not adding new content a lot. I'm not really, it's just sitting there, it's not doing anything most of the time.
So for you, the thing that's driving change is the content change.
Yep.
And it might be periodic, it might be whatever frequency you're working at, right?
Mhm.
And for me, a more dynamic site that depends on maybe some feeds from here, some feeds from Facebook ties in, the YouTube ties
Yeah.
into it. And those are hard things to solve in this particular problem.
Definitely.
But
And that's
it's
when you
really
want to
easy
be.
to get started, which is awesome.
Yeah. So depends on what your use case is. Like if I was trying to pull in feeds from Twitter or Facebook or whatever, I'm not going to do it this way.
Right.
More likely. I might try to do that,
Now, when things
and
get
it's probably
really-
going to fall flat on its face.
Sure. Well, it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
So where we're going with these particular applications, and you've got the nail on the head, is this whole idea of single page apps,
Right.
right? So that when you download this static content, it comes with the JavaScript, the code that needs to run the particular website. And there really isn't any interaction between the server and the browser anymore.
Right.
JavaScript kind of just makes things look great. KeyPass is a password protecting thing, and it's a really great example of an awesome single page application. And they actually do use Hugo in the background to distribute this really awesome application that does a whole bunch of stuff, encryption and all that, without having to deal with dynamic websites.
Right.
They don't have to deal with PHP. Not a thing. Imagine a life without PHP. Seriously.
Yeah. For something like that eCommerce site that I was showing with all that Razor stuff and all that template stuff, as I was going through that, I'm like, man, why am I going through this? I can. Should I?
Right.
Now that I have, I'm not going to do it again. I'll be honest there. Like,
We all learned something.
that is not worth it. But you could, but I don't know what that use case would be for something like that. Why not just go full ASP MVC on it and just go that route? Well, maybe you don't know that exists and that's why you would go that route, but
The trick is determining whether or not your content truly is static or truly is dynamic. And a lot of us make this decision, well, this is dynamic because it has a YouTube feed.
right.
turns out that's pretty static if you have a decently written JavaScript program behind it to go find that stuff for you,
Yeah.
right? So there is a big, learning experience. If you go the wrong way,
Yeah, for sure. So I forgot about this slide, but some of the things I wanted to try, and kind of to the point of why would I do this? I just want to see if I can and see if it works. So I kind of want to just hook it up to an API gateway,
sure.
run some APIs in the back end, and see what I can do with it. And if it's not that much level of overhead, maybe I'll do it.
What you're going to find out is that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. So, well, I didn't know that. So I was either like, this is going to be awful and terrible, and it's going to crash and burn, light it on fire, and I will never do it again, or this could be interesting. It'll at least be interesting at the very least.
Learning experience.
Yeah. And then hooking it up to like SSO and all that crap too, and hooking it up to a CSM service, which I've kind of done with forestry, but and I just saw this feature in Netlify like yesterday. So forms without the server-side code running or without JavaScript.
Isn't that nice?
How the hell does that even work? I have no idea. So that's kind of where I'm heading in this journey of trying to figure out static sites. Plus, I need to work on my cloud stuff anyway.
So here's where it kind of boils down. And this is a talk I was thinking we'd give them later. When you use S3 to serve a static site, right, it costs next to nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking a penny or two a month.
Right.
That's it, literally. And they'll give you the domain for free as long as you're using their service. So you can host a website for 2 cents a month.
Yeah.
I think I can afford that. Almost.
Yeah. That's pretty. I mean, just doing anything there, even if you have just like a simple function that you're using all the time to translate data. I mean, stupid cheap. So yeah, that's where I'm kind of thinking about going with this and seeing what I can do. The blog is not my blog. My blog is on the bottom of the blog. That's the last thing that says blog is my blog. You probably don't even want to look at that. You'd probably be more interested in the little Hugo blog for getting started. And you don't have to use that. I mean, do a simple Google search, and there's plenty of stuff out there. There's tons of examples out there. So there's some examples, presentation links on there too. You can find me on Twitter, all that good stuff. You can find me on Untapped. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me because I like beer a lot. So if you don't know what Untapped is, it's basically a social network where you track your beer. How awesome is that? So, any other questions? Sweet. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.